The war. I read this at Shades of Africa in Long Beach, California last night. No, I'm quoting this honestly. This was 8 days after UVA incident. I think we all know what I'm talking about if you hear what I'm saying. So this was the opening line. I am from Virginia. Each of us individually can either be part of the problem or part of the solution. You can either look at one another as human beings, or we can look at each other as steps towards some type of delusional alpha status. We can lift, or we can push down. That's a choice we'll be faced with more and more as society tries harder and harder to push the addictive schadenfreude. The pleasure derived from seeing the misfortune of others. The divisive orange Kool-Aid made by a guy who is wholly lost, trying to find himself in an ego stroke he can't facilitate or fabricate. In September 2014, I was challenged by a writer-artist friend to write a short story or summary on evil. At that time, I barely knew Trump existed. He was just another rich, narcissistic douchebag. It was also after that I more thoroughly understood the indescribably horrific circumstances involving the reasons for the Civil War, the articles of recession in particular. The war. Negative is a tyrant, a dictator that dictates that we as humans in our society mustn't ever allow ourselves true happiness. That we must at all times on some level cling to our custom-fit versions of our past, a past engineered by the negative. That's the capital. The negative is brilliant. It's pervaded our way of life so thoroughly, endeared itself to our egos so romantically, that we bestowed upon it a term of endearment, the human condition. With this, we look at a life of benevolent pragmatism, in a cup half full love affair with our existence, our own as well as our brothers and sisters, with contempt and disdain. Well, I call bullshit. One can expound that we have free will, or one can expound that we cannot live an unadulterated life of embracing the positive and discarding the negative, freeing ourselves from the much less frequently verbalized term of masochism, the other dissociated side of the human condition. But one cannot state both maxims and maintain congruence. See, the negative is smooth. It thrives on, no, it basically is pain itself. So it is created a perpetual emotion machine that not only perpetuates but accelerates. We are its subjugates, so completely that we seek out pain. In business, it's called the tipping point, when the product starts to sell itself with no effort or outlay by the entity. And that is where we are currently. So enamored by the seductive human condition, we will break our backs to break our backs. I was once one of the negative's masochistic minions, searching for something. Well, it turns out what I was searching for was pain, and I found it again and again in social dynamics as well as my eternal internal negative self-concept. It took a select few unconditionally accepting angels to steal me from my shackles. I had been the taskmaster of all prison guards for whom I was the sole prisoner. But once I accepted their acceptance, which, trust me, was not immediate, I was free, liberated from my own self-inflicted servitude to the negative. I refer to this acceptance as the Kevlar vest, which when donned was utterly impenetrable, with the only exceptions being my own non-masochistic choosing. I feel like Lawrence mentioned it is my belief that sadism is, dare I say always heavily veiled masochism. So this omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient despot of our suffering has so thoroughly infiltrated the social matrix that he gets it from both ends. He reaps suffering from both the one receiving the pain as well as the one inflicting it. because the negative is programmed the sadist to be thus so as a means of keeping the positive out of sight, out of mind. As long as he's the first to hurt, he will hurt before he gets hurt. It's ever solidifying his dark, substantive version of his past as I stroll with English language, and therefore never having his pain questioned. And it's my first language. It's crazy how people never know the one who wants to be questioned. In the movie The Dark Knight, Alfred says to Batman, "Some men just want to watch the world burn. And the thing is, the world they are burning is their own." That being said, all that being said, to white American whom it may concern, I understand your lack of understanding. Understanding, after all, can be quite inconvenient. But I ask you, if you have an ounce of empathy within you, just glance at our last 400 to 150, 30 years and tell me you wouldn't feel the slightest flicker of resentment when the role is reversed. If you tell me you wouldn't, I'll tell you you're delusional. And that is an aspect of white privilege, or in a more generalized term, entitlement. This isn't a justification for violence. This is written right after Baltimore Uprising, by the way. It may, however, be an excellent explanation. In my mind, the pervasive, almost ubiquitous denial of an objective reality can lead one to the road of a downward spiral away from the rational. Trust me when I say I know this, for I have myself ventured down this road. To me, the journey to this road is not an indication of weakness in any way, but an indication of strength. Strength in one's convictions in their battle with the illogical, which unfortunately is our society's current state of affairs. The fact that we all more or less know the history and carry on with a simple, well, I didn't do it internal mentality and external attitude is simply gross apathy, even antipathy. Instead of us, now that's all of us on both sides of the racial divide, going through life demonizing that which isn't convenient or comfortable to think about. Let's pursue the personal attainment of a level of understanding and compassion. This includes the stereotyping of either side by either side. It is this stereotyping that leads to a narrowing and intensifying resentment. Ideally, we need to evaluate any individual as such, individually. I feel like Putin's just like, here's the pot, I'm gonna start. It's crazy. For their outward characteristics do not tell us what is in their heart. It does not tell us the true character of the character. With a movement towards these, we can hope to see that ounce of empathy on the horizon and a desire to bridge the divide. We are born into a society of emotional momentum, fueled by selective empathy. Selective empathy. It is the human condition. The momentum is gaining, and it is blind, and it is deaf, and however, it's not mute. Fake news. What? If we truly want even a glimmer of hope to slow it down, we must not only look outward extrospectively, but inward as well. Honest moral introspection, it isn't for the weak. And according to the academic text I've been reading, it is not in our DNA.